Clinician to Manager, or to Clinician to Leader by Dr. Elise Sullivan. I've known Elise for a number of years now and watched her do some amazing things and bring together nurses who've moved into those management and leadership roles from a variety of providers, and not only in aged care, though Elise's background is aged care, but also out of acute and other sectors where nurses are constantly being asked to step up into business management, leadership, etc. roles. So I asked if she would come and do on her topic of from clinician to leader, and so I'm glad you could join us today. Elise has a very interesting career. She was an RN who became a don at quite a young age of 26 and moved up through the ranks, then went to Canberra and worked in policy development for the aged care sector before returning to Melbourne and doing her PhD in nursing. And I asked what area of nursing. She said advancing nursing. So I hope Elise can explain a bit more about advancement or advancing nursing. So you're in for a treat. Elise has got a lot of experience. She's a published author in this field, and people fly around Australia to help them build teams and to help their nurses step up into those leadership roles. For us as an organisation, it was a couple of years ago that we had an executive director of nursing at a function put up a hand and say, what about us? What about the nurses here? There's a lot of education and education funding and opportunities out there for carers and other of the lower ranks to advance them in their skills. But what about the nurses? There aren't many options. They're all expensive. So we wanted something that worked towards having a single qualification, kind of like CPA in the accounting world. If you meet an accountant and they've got the post-nominals of CPA, Certified Practicing Accountant, you know that they're quality, you know what they've been through. There's rigor in the qualification, so you know what you're getting for when you pay them or hire them. But in aged care, community care, we don't have that kind of basis. So people run off and do from a Cert 4 in frontline management to a diploma of leadership and management, grad certs, grad dips, even people do masters of health management or something like that. It would be good if we had a single qualification. I think that everyone knew that if I'm stepping up from a clinical role into a management role, this is the qualification I go for. And I think that's Elise's cross to bear. She's running around the industry trying to make that happen. So Elise, if I can welcome you and say thank you for joining us today.
Thank you, Michael. It's an absolute pleasure to join you today, and I thank everyone who's online, because I know how hard it is to actually find the time to do these sorts of things, which are so important to your own advancement. And as you were saying, Michael, we do as clinicians. So obviously, I'm a nurse, but as clinicians, yeah, we've got to spend 20 hours at least a year on professional development. And most people, it's quite easy. They focus completely on their clinical area of expertise and whatnot, and they get a lot of support to do that. There's an acceptance out there that nurses must engage in professional development, and carers at any level in aged care should do that too. And the clinical area gets a lot of focus. But when you're a manager, yes, it's almost like that stops. And the reality is that as a nurse manager, your new specialty is management. So your 20 hours really does actually need to be spent on developing yourself, your thinking, your skills, and your strategies to manage and to lead. And
I agree completely. I was served in the army. I went through the Royal Military College, Duntroon, and the amount of time that is spent on leadership. And I remember another conversation we had, Elise, when you get promoted within a facility, sometimes it's hard. You're suddenly leading your former peers. Now you're their boss, and how much of a challenge that can be. In the army, they don't actually allow you back in the same regiment where you served before if you were a soldier and you've crossed over to being a leader, into being an officer. Because they know how big a hassle that can be, or how hard it can be. So
absolutely.
I will hand over the presentation to you and let you go for it. So please take it away.
Thank you so much. Now, I just wanted to talk about the things that worry us most when we're making this transition, and just invite you to think about where you might be in this, in the first column or the second one. And what I've noticed over the years of working with nurses making the transition, and certainly in my own experience, is that we're often so riddled with self-doubt. We see others doing this and they seem so confident, but not us. What's that about? It can be incredibly stressful. So rather than being an experience in a role where you can be completely energized by it because you're making a big difference, people often are really stressed by it because it's overwhelming. There's so much to do in these roles and there are lots of little moving parts. So they might feel like rather than being fully engaged in the role, it's just completely overwhelming and it's hard to know where to focus. For people coming up into management, it can be really confusing for the same reason. There's lots of little bits to it. It's about shifting your mindset and your perspective, and they're not necessarily clear on what it means to make that shift. And like you were saying, Michael, about people who come up through the rungs, they're promoted from within, they often experience a level of resistance, and it's because the relationship has to shift, but it's difficult for people to make that change, so they wonder, they're constantly fighting to convince others that they're now the manager, they're the leader, and that they're a credible person. They're trying to convince people to respect them and step into their power. So these are all of the things that I've come across, people have spoken to me about, and I've experienced it myself. And so, as Michael said, my name's Elise Sullivan, and I developed a program. I'm the founder of the Australian Academy of Clinical Leadership, and I did it for that reason. It's to support people to make the transition, and I created their signature program, which is called the Clinician to Manager Acceleration Program, which I'll tell you a little bit about right at the end. Just moving my slides first. But today I want to share with you the 5 stages along the success path from being a clinician to becoming a really great manager and an empowered leader. And this is going to immediately help you to identify where you are along this path and what you need to do to accelerate your journey. Once you get this down, you'll start experiencing a whole lot more clarity and confidence as you do step up into that manager role and beyond. And it's a whole lot less stressful too. So I'll also email you an ebook that I prepared that sets out the milestones and the strategies that you need to take to achieve that move, to move along the success path really quickly. And if you wouldn't mind making sure your email address is actually in the comments box so you do get that as quickly as possible, that'd be fabulous. I hope you will enjoy this book. Okay, so now if you're a manager but you're not getting that sense of satisfaction or achievement that you had hoped for, or even if you're an aspiring manager, aspiring to become a nurse manager, but you're not really clear or confident about stepping up, then stay with me because we're going to go through why managers in aged care in particular can get great work satisfaction and energized, and why it's critical that you need to get support to make that transition right now. So my goal is really simple in all of this. It's to help you easily step into your leadership power. Plus, I'm going to show you how to make this transition quickly and confidently so you become known as a great leader. The more you can step into your own leadership power, the greater the opportunity for you to experience that deep satisfaction that really comes when you're leading and achieving something that is really much bigger than yourself. So I hope you're ready, but I have to warn you that before we dig in, I want to warn you about something that's critically important, and not paying attention to this will virtually guarantee that you'll experience more overwhelm and more stress as you're making this transition. So we are really good doers. We're often promoted because we work really hard and get lots of stuff done. And that we are expert clinicians. We're often promoted because we're just really good at nursing. So we get the clinical work done too, and people respect us for that. And so when we are promoted, we often feel like we have to keep doing, and that we also have to know best, that we're the expert clinicians. And in fact, that is often our comfort zones. So we might have the tendency, if that's the case, to think we just have to keep doing more and more and more and more, just have to do it more, at a higher and more visible level. Alternatively, we might feel we need to adopt the conventional wisdom that is, managers are the ones that are in control. So, they're the ones that take control. You tell everyone what to do, but also you sort of might, because you're the expert, might tell them how to do it as well. So you might have a tendency to micromanage, which is a bit of a problem because we know there's a lot of evidence out there that people who are skilled, highly skilled, such as the people that will be in your teams, your nurses, PCAs, they're becoming more and more skilled all the time. And also they're doing complex work. So people in this category are actually motivated by purpose, mastery, and autonomy. And they've got the skills to do the job. They actually don't need to be told how to do it in the main. In fact, by doing that, so telling them how to do their job will actually diminish their engagement and their motivation. Or worse, they will, lash out and resist you, and that's often the case. So in either one of those cases, if you're people are doers or they're controllers, they will get pushback, resistance, they'll get overwhelmed, and they'll get stressed out. So how engaged your people are is a direct result of how empowering you are. How engaged your people are has a direct impact on their performance, on your team's performance, and of course on your performance. If the people in your team are really fully engaged, the work gets done in the way you want it done, with less stress. And things don't go wrong because if they're super engaged, they use their initiative. When they see things that are not quite right, then they're more likely to say something about it, pick these things up, and even fix them. So this model here shows you what I'm talking about. So as a doer, right at the start of the empowerment journey, you don't have a huge amount of engagement. If you're doing everyone else's work, as a controller, you can actually disengage people. So you go down into that trough of controlling and disengagement. To make the transition, you actually have to let go, get comfortable with not knowing everything, and to trust that your team want to do their best. And really, it's up to you to create the conditions so that they can do their best. This is about being enabling. And when you start operating at this level, they build their capability, their confidence, and they actually start managing themselves a whole lot more. This is when you get real engagement because you're tapping into those three core drivers. You're giving them purpose, you're making sure your purpose is aligned with theirs. And in the main, it is like they're there because they want to care, they want to make a difference in other people's lives. You're giving them opportunities for mastery, to challenge their ability and to develop their ability. And you're also enabling them to operate at an autonomous level. So you're giving them some control over how they do their work. This is really motivating. Okay, so you need to be empowering. But to be empowering, you need to become an empowered leader. And this is what all of our programs lead to. But, I'm sure you'll agree that trying to manage and to lead isn't always as simple as people sometimes make it seem. Even I'm making it seem more easy than it really is. And I know that. It comes with a lot of challenges. Feeling overwhelming, it's stressful, full of self-doubt and worry that you're going to do something wrong. And it's like you're the meat in the sandwich. Your staff expect one thing and your boss expects another. And it's worse when you moved up from being a buddy and a boss, like Michael was saying earlier, where the relationships change. So they've got another set of expectations on you. And that's why I created this 5-stage success path, which I'll share with you in a minute, because it's about demystifying the process of making that transition from being a clinical person or a carer and becoming a really great manager and an empowered leader, which is going to save you a lot of time, money, stress, frustration, all of those things. Yep. So I developed this framework and this system because I actually saw a lot of people who really wanted to become great managers and leaders and to feel more confident, but they were sort of getting completely sidetracked. So, for example, I saw nurses applying for management positions before they really understood what the management role was and what sort of mindset they needed to do the role. I also saw nurses enrolling for postgraduate management courses without having really solidified the foundations they needed to build on, the basic stuff that they needed to do the work, to manage the unit. And then I saw more experienced nurse managers trying to reduce their overwhelm, because there's a huge sense of overwhelm, struggling because they didn't have the people and the systems in place to get the work done when they weren't there. And look, I could go on, but I knew that people really, they just needed clarity, because in full transparency, that was my story as well. That's exactly what happened to me. So before I outline these 5 stages from clinician to empowered leader and the specifics for each of those steps, I want to share with you, a bit about my own transition. So like you, I'm a nurse, and like most of you, I was thrown into the role of management. In my very first job, I was put in charge. I had just come out of training to be a nurse and barely knew what to do as a nurse, let alone what to do as a manager of people. And people pretty much managed themselves, which was just as well. They ignored me for the most part, and I often wondered why I was even there, what difference was I making? And there were these expectations that they had of me, my staff had of me, my boss had of me, which I didn't really know they had until, of course, I didn't meet them, and then I knew. So I just got busy doing what I knew I could do, so I didn't disappoint people. So I just got busy doing the work, doing, really getting nowhere. And at this stage, I also had a bit of ambition to make a difference in my life. So eventually I came to the realization that, I couldn't just do the work. I had to think about how it was being done and maybe even start having a say in who was doing what. But I had no real idea as to what to do about that or how to do it. And I realized at that point, you know what, I need more training. But I didn't have much money, I had even less time, and there was absolutely no support from my boss or the organisation at that time to do any management training at all. I worked for some other bosses who, like me, had been promoted to their highest levels of incompetence, and they weren't very good role models. And so this much I did know, because I resented how they treated me and how they treated their staff. I didn't like working for them. And even though I didn't mind doing the work, I just didn't like working for them, doing the work for them. So I realised that if something was going to change, that I had to make it happen. No one else was going to do it for me. I had to back myself. So this was many years ago, early 90s. I enrolled in a graduate diploma of business management at Monash University. There was no such thing as a health administration program or a management in aged care program at that stage. So I had to translate everything that I learned, which was fantastic. And I learned all of these things with people from all different industries, all these new ideas, this new knowledge, this strategy. But I had to translate that into my own aged care context. And it was actually really hard to do. But I was really inspired, and I started believing that I could make a bigger difference if I did this role well. I could get somewhere. I could become really successful. I could have more influence. I could, set my own path to success if I did this really well. I could earn more money, so I wouldn't have to work as much. That would have been good. But I'd skipped the foundations, and no one could tell me what they were. It was just trial and error. So I did spend many years bumbling around and learning from a great many mistakes, and no one really taught me to, how to roster. I just worked it out. I didn't know how to have those difficult conversations and manage difficult people, manage their performance. Just had to work it out. And so I really set up my own learning opportunities. So I was very quickly promoted from clinician to being in charge, to being a director of nursing. As Michael said, I was a director of nursing at 26, and I'm sure that a lot of people suffered for that decision, but you live and learn. And then I left the wards to work in government. And in my last role in government, which is 2009, I was actually the senior nursing advisor for rural health here in Victoria. And I led legislative change to advance nursing practice. And that was the basis of my PhD as well. And it was actually at this point that I realised that it really didn't matter what I did as a senior nursing advisor or what governments did to advance the nursing profession and to help nurses operate at a different level. If managers at that front line, that point of care, were not empowered and didn't have the skills to empower their people, then their people would not advance. They wouldn't operate at a higher level. They just couldn't step up and to make that bigger difference. So I wrote a book about it, and my belief, and I'm absolutely convinced of this, that great leaders are self-empowered first. The 5 stages clinician to empowered leader is based on my book, on my work, on my research, and most certainly on my experience. But before we go there, I wanted to identify 5 roadblocks that will get in your way of making this transition. And the first is not having a clear path, not understanding what this role is and what it takes to get there, and not appreciating that it's okay not to know everything. And in the first steps, you'll probably just be really scared, but to get the right supports around you. And the second thing is not believing in yourself and your right to lead. The third thing, of course, is not backing yourself, not doing what you need to do to make the transition. Doing the training, getting a mentor, all of those things, spending time learning. The fourth is not getting the support from peers and mentors, not tapping into your wider network of other managers in your situation. And the fifth is not getting support to practice empowered leadership. And that's really about not, having to deal with the unrealistic expectations of what you can actually achieve without development. So being promoted into management without being supported to operate at that level, you're on a hiding to nowhere, really. And here they are. Here are the 5 stages of the transition. And I just wanted to reiterate, without having that clear path from the point at which you make the decision to step up, you could get completely overwhelmed and not really know where to focus your attention. And this chips away at your self-confidence, which then undermines your credibility as a leader. You know what I mean? Like the managers who seem to be really worried and constantly questioning themselves, they actually lose people's confidence around them, and it creates a bit of a vacuum into which others will tend to jump and take a lead, and that reduces your confidence even further. So it's a vicious cycle down. These people are unintentionally handing over their power to lead. It's far better to set out on the journey, to set the milestones that you can expect, and to do the things that make sense at each stage, not trying to do it all at once. So let me take you very quickly through this. And I want you to think about where you might be in this process. So in the first instance, you might be aspiring to become a leader in nursing. And, that's the point at which you get to decide and to think about, why do I even want to do this? What's the difference I could make in these roles? And believe me, You make an enormous difference by stepping into management. Your impact increases dramatically when you can influence more than, one or two people around you. And that is the point of management. It's about making a bigger impact than you can make on your own. So having made the decision, you do go and get that job as a manager, and you're a beginning manager. There is absolutely nothing wrong with that. We don't expect beginning nurses to know everything and to be fully competent and confident. So why would we expect that from a beginning manager? And at that point, you really are, focusing on becoming competent in the role, understanding the role and developing the skills to do it to a point where you feel competent and also confidence. And then when you get to that point, you're starting to look to leverage your ability, and you do that through the people and the process. So setting in train processes and systems and structures so the work is getting done even when you're not there. And that's around delegation as well as the systems. Having sorted that out, then you go back to looking at, well, hang on, what can I do to really empower my people to step up, to actually step into their own power, to make sure they're operating in their strengths and are completely engaged and motivated to do what they came here to do, what drives them to do even better. So really reach their potential. So they start managing themselves and you have to do less of the work for them. And there comes a point at which, over time, your specialty is leading and is managing, and you're being looked to help people coming up behind you to step into their leadership power. And it's at that point you're starting to realize, there's things that I actually bring to leadership that is of huge value. So you're contributing to the leadership knowledge base. You're becoming a master. And by the way, all of these stages occur with every transition you make. So transitioning from clinician to manager, from manager to director, from director to executive. You'll notice you'll go through every one of these stages. Okay, let's move forward. Now, I do have 6 tips to leave you with to make this transition a little bit smoother, a whole lot quicker, and with less stress. And they are these. The first tip, create your plan. So I'm going to send you that book, and that will actually help you create your plan because it sets out the milestones that you should probably be ticking off at each level, and it'll reveal where you are in your own success path and what you might need to do to keep moving forward. So look out for that. Believe in your right to lead. Find your power as a leader and step into it. So what is it you bring to this role? And I hear myself saying time and time again when I have nurses wanting to be managers and nurse managers saying, they don't listen to me. They don't do what I want. They question my authority. They question why I'm even there. And I have to say, well, you're in the job, not them. Take the lead. This is your role. Do it. And, just expect people to accept that. And with that sort of confidence, you actually get a whole lot more convincing. Adopt an empowering mindset. Believe in your people's need to excel and empower them to do so. I know through my own research that 95 or more people in health and aged care settings, nurses, entered the profession because they wanted to make a difference in other people's lives. So your purpose is completely aligned. You need to create the conditions where they can realise their purpose. Get a mentor. I didn't have any real mentors when I first started, but I've got to tell you, I have a number of mentors now. For every area of my life, I look to people who know more than I do, who've been there. And because I figure, I don't have that many years left that I can waste making all those mistakes that I started when I started. So get yourself a mentor. Join a community of managers and leaders that supports you. And that can be anywhere, but I'm just going to tell you very quickly, we are developing an online community of nurse leaders called Nurse Business. Now, it's not going to be launched till later in the year, but if you're interested in joining us and being part of shaping it, being our founding members, I'm going to provide you more information on this. You'll find that it's such a supportive community, and that's what we want. We believe community will transform nursing and everything they do because it gives them more power. Number 6, back yourself and actively seek out opportunities to develop the skills you lack continuously. This is not a once-off journey. This is never-ending. Like clinical work, like care work, the evidence changes, how we do things changes, they find out new ways of doing things better. It's the same in leadership and management. So don't ever stop learning. I'm still learning every time I deliver a program. I do my research and I learn something new. So don't wait for someone else to do this for you, because of course, if I had have waited, I would probably still be a nurse in an aged care service caring, maybe. Or actually, even before that, I would have been a barmaid, because that's what I did before I became a nurse. And to help you accelerate your journey, we are making available, we're opening up our doors to our Clinician to Manager program. And this program does, we know from the people who've gone before, it increases people's confidence, increases their capacity to manage their time, their clarity, and also their influence. It reduces stress, overwhelm, anxiety, and confusion, and that sense that you just don't make any difference. So this whole program is about providing the support to really step into your leadership power. And Laura, for example, did our program not that long ago, and she said it bridges the gaps between being clinical and being a manager. There is not a lot of other courses out there that actually provides this bridge, don't I know it? I learn how to run a team, manage my staff, and be able to speak in a language that executives understand, and then translate this to my staff, preparing presentations, coaching my staff, and how to get them to do what I want them to do, and to create a supportive environment. And I got a new job, and she so did. She actually was promoted to nurse unit manager at the Royal Children's Hospital while she was doing this program, and she's never really looked back. And I watched with great inspiration as she keeps moving. I think the world is her oyster. So, Michael, just very quickly, I'll share an overview of that program, and also make sure people know that because they are your guests, they get a huge discount. So the full program is about accelerating your transition from being a clinician to a manager, from being a manager to being a great manager and leader. It is a 6-month program, and you come together once a month. You get all of your materials online and videos, which you can check in your own time. And it's very much designed to develop the skills and practical strategies that you need to deal with your real issues, everyday issues. The core competencies you develop are around you, your style, change, managing conflict, difficult conversations, collaboration, managing budgets, managing people, including managing performance, and of course, managing your time so you've got more time to do all of this in and to find balance. Now, of course, it's usually $2,200 for the whole program, but because you are a guest of Michael's at the ACDN, you'll get $720 off. That's a pretty big discount, 32%. So, your next steps. Please make sure you've left your email so that we can actually send you the ebook, and also tell you a bit more about the community we're setting up for people like yourselves who want to get support in nursing leadership and management. I'll get you more information around the Clinician to Manager Acceleration Program, so that if you're interested, you can join us in our next intake, which actually starts on the 16th of June, and get that discount that's only offered to people who are Michael's friends. And email me if you have any questions or any worries that you're currently grappling with at the moment. So I'd love to keep in touch. So Michael, that's probably enough from me.
Thank you very much, Elise. That's a lot of information in 40 minutes. So to the people on the webinar, don't worry about if you haven't been taking notes or haven't got all of it down. I will be sending out a copy of the slides to everyone as well. The webinar is being recorded and we put it up on our YouTube channel so that you can actually see both the slides with Elise's commentary about it and be able to share it with your colleagues. We find that probably the most helpful step is people saying, I need to share it. How do I do that? So thank you very much, Elise. That was excellent.
Thank you,
if you have any questions, please put them into the comments box, and Elise will do her best to answer them while we're here. Bar that, there's a lot of information out there for you on ACDN and the different work we're doing, including the work we're doing with Elise about leadership. There's also a set of Australian workforce accreditation standards that are being written for the industry as well, which will be coming out in draft form between now and the end of June, with comment to then be ratified by the 1st of November. So look out for that, because we'd love your feedback. They're being written by clinicians, so I'm definitely not invited to be in the writing because I'm not a clinician. But the more people who put in their 2 cents to it, the better those standards become for all of us to be able to manage the workforce. So thank you very much for joining us. There's no other questions coming into the system, so I'll say thank you very much for joining us. Please, as I said, everyone will get a copy of the slides and a link to the YouTube video for all of it. We'll add you to the mailing list so that you get an update for next month's webinar, and I hope to see you again. So thank you very much for joining us. Goodbye.
Thank you.